Hi, this is JR with the alert about the coming time period as it relates to earthquakes. I'm going to show you some quick data, but the basic thing is we're coming into a period of middle and late May where we have an annual increase in large earthquake activity, which I guess I'm just going to show you the data for now, rather than make some comments on why this might be the case and, future implications. Let's just see some data. So what we're looking at here is volcanodiscovery.com, and I can post this entire link. That's just the name of the website. It's earthquakes/global seismic activity level. So this is for the whole year of 2016. I'm going to start here. We'll go up and down to show you some prior years and some more recent years. This period of May is what we're coming up into. So today is actually May 10th. So that's somewhere around here. This is 2016 that we're looking at, of course, right here, as far as the severity or intensity, the intensity of earthquakes across the whole year, spread out on one chart of 365 days. You can see the average day, you have about a 6.0 earthquake almost every day, or every other day or something like that. So that's the 6.0 on the right. We have increasing intensity. This is 7, this is 8. That year we did not have an 8 earthquake. We had 2 7.9s, maybe a 7.8 here. Yeah, 7.9 it says right there. So we're just going to look at this yellow line right here for this latter part of May. So I don't know what date that would be, but let's call it the 18th. It's just past the center of May. Here's May 1st, here's June 1st. So we're going to look at this period across several years. What we're looking for here is the regularity of earthquakes across year after year after year for the certain period of May. So we go down here, we have more than a 6.5, and there's several across a few days. Here, this was almost a 7. So that line right there is that horizontal line, that's 7. So this is a 6.9. So we have a 6.9 there. We have a package of upper 6s, middle 6s, and then that one that's like a 7.1 in red right here. That was 2015. 2014, we had almost a 7 a few days before this. So right around the very center of the month. Here we have some quite big ones a little bit later. So, you can see that's almost a week from June there. Now I've messed up my position here. Let me go back to 2016 to get the right place. So there's the 2016, 2015, 2014. We had some stuff a few days prior to that. The highest level for May is the middle of May. Here, the highest level for May is the very end of May, actually, that year. Again, the very end of May, or about a week after this one. A lot of times you'll have one and then another one a week to 10 days after. Here we have one and then a follow-up one at the very end of May. That year, not as much severity. Here we have one a few days earlier and then the follow-up. So this one a few days earlier and then the follow-up about a week later in that case. Scrolling down still. Again, middle of May, we have just about a 6.5 right here in yellow is a 6.5, and then about a week later, maybe 6 days later, 6.8. Here, middle of May, we have this one, mid 6s, and this year being 2010, not such a strong one there, right in the middle of May. There was one probably May 8th, followed by, I don't know, 10 to 12 days later, another over 7. Let me see if I position myself right here. So this was 2016 was my starting point. So trying to stay close to this just after the middle of May level. Here we scroll up, not too much this year, 2017 in May. This year, another one, right at 6.4. The strongest for the month of May is right along that period. A yellow one here, but surrounded on the left and right by 2 stronger earthquakes. The strongest for the year, the 2 strongest for the year in 2019 were in May. The strongest for whatever, several months in a row from April till the very end of July. The strongest earthquake was in May there. This year, not so much. This year, just the strongest across a few weeks, not even there. Anyway, scrolling up. So we were at 2019, 2020. We have a strong one in middle of May. And here, a very strong one, a couple days after the yellow right here. We have a yellow, and then the next day, the strongest one was upper 5, I think. And then here we go into the mid 7s. So now if we go and look at 2020, of course, we're just at early May, so there's no middle May data. When I scroll through this, it's not astonishingly, notable that we have these upper 6 so often in middle of May. It's not like super, those 3 years in a row, you definitely see if the average on a given day is 6, well, we're way above average for that week or whatever. This year, not so much. But there's definitely an increase across, this was supposed to be in later May. So, well, you can, if you just look across the year for 2016 or any of these years, you'll see upper 5 is a typical day. And we do have here yellow a lot. As we just scroll down middle of May, we're 2 days from a yellow, 1 day from a yellow, whatever. We're one, this is a little bit notable, but as you get back to go further back in time, this pattern seems to fade. This is not like a 100-year-old pattern that I'm aware of. It's a pattern that has gotten more prominent. And if you can even see here, really, if we just looked at 2018, boom, boom, and 2 days prior, boom, there in 2021 or 2020, and then in 2021, again, a quite strong one. So we're coming into a period of increased earthquake activity, potentially, not a guarantee. So that's not super notable what we've looked at there, but wouldn't it be, I think it's a bit notable. Wouldn't it be interesting if you flip the calendar 6 months and see the same thing in middle of November or getting just past the middle of November? Let's look at that now. Okay, so here we go. We're starting at 2013 in this case. Here's middle of November. We got a very prominent one there, the 4th or 5th, 3rd or 4th strongest that year, here middle of November. So just here's middle of May. If we pop out 6 months later, that'd be middle of November. So let's just scroll up here, 2013, we've got a high 7, almost 8 there, 7.8 looks like. Red line here, a 7. Another red line a couple days prior, and a much bigger one there late in the month, over 8. 7.9, let's say the second week of November that year. Again, 7.2, a pretty prominent one, right about 8 or 9 days into November. Here is a prominent one. Let's scroll with this yellow and red. Yeah, so the thing is they aren't like the exact date. Let's try that one. I'm assuming that all the years are set up the same, so I can just scroll. But like even just these 2 years apart, we've got 13 November and then whatever date this is. These are not the exact next day. This might be the 11th of November this year, and then 13 there, and then again a red one on the let's call that on the 11th. That's 3 years in a row, and here on the 13th, another red one. So either the 13th or 11th, 4 years in a row. Oops, let's count that as, if you want to take this year, you've got some upper 6s, 7s. Oh, really? There it is again. upper 6 is 6.9. The 11th or whatever date of November, I mean, this is way above average. If our average is 5.8 or 6 on a typical day, here we have 6.9, 6.7. This year, it's a couple days later on the 13th or so, there's a 7. This year, a 7 or 7.1. That's just over a 7. A couple days later, 7.9. Here we got a 7.2. Here we got a couple days prior, a 6.7. Here is a 7 on, looks like the 13th. And then nothing in 2020, that November. And then here, just a mid 6 a day or two prior. So it's not every single day, but if we analyzed a lot of time periods, which I did in a different video, we would find that there are anniversaries that have an increased intensity of earthquakes, inconsistently happening, but much higher than probability. I'll go ahead and stop the screen share thing and to say directly. So my interest in this isn't just from a perspective of, oh, this is statistically notable. That's true. It is statistically notable, but there are researchers, not so much myself, but other people that I've followed their research that talk about why this is the case, that we have the regularity of earthquakes being more intense in middle of May and middle of November. And why that has developed in recent years. I don't think it goes back several decades. That would be interesting to check that data, but I'm not interested enough to go find that data. I probably could find it. What did interest me is more the implications of what they're saying, where they're looking for 7+ in a middle of May time period, like let's say 3rd week of May. So around the 23rd, 24th, could be 21st, could be 18th, a little earlier. That's not exactly 6 months from that November period, which was more like a November 11th to 13 was the November peak period. But if we get a big enough earthquake, like a 7+, and it's deep enough, it has to be, I'm going to pick this number, over 80 kilometers deep, or we could pick over 100 kilometers deep, just as a round number for 100, 3 digits, 100 kilometers deep. A lot of earthquakes are 10 kilometers deep or within 30 kilometers of the surface of the earth. So when we get the really deep ones that are really big, that's when we expect the later set. A week later, could be 10 to 13 days later, a bigger set of earthquakes. So there'll be the one that triggers it. And a lot of times the second wave, so to speak, will be quite a few. And they won't necessarily all be in the same place. They may be in a row, which is a different topic, that you have a set of like 6.3, 6.5, 6.7, kind of, time and position like dominoes falling. It would be interesting if we did find that. In some cases, we do find that. So these are interesting, pretty simple from the perspective of, the basic physics of it. The flow of a bulge of hot lava or magma underground that's then going to press the surface of the earth into an earthquake. So there is a connection here. I'm on volcanodiscovery.com. There is a connection between magma and earthquakes that I haven't gone into much detail about here, but I understand that to be true. So I think I'll stop there, but I will say that the extent of the warnings given by some of these folks is very extreme. I find the extremity and kind of the nature of their warnings to be so extreme that I think They're insightful. Their analysis from a numerical perspective is solid, but their warnings about any particular year, I take pretty conservatively, where yes, there are increased earthquake activities clearly for middle of November, middle of May, and other periods of time as well. It's actually broken up. There's one of the patterns is every 91 or 92 days, more or less. So it's just four equal, periods of time where then there's a couple of days or a week where you have that increased intensity being very common. So middle of August and middle of February would be the other peak periods. I'll go ahead and scroll through those real fast. But anyway, in a minute. In the event that we have a 7 or 8 earthquake here in middle to late May, and it's deep, then I do have some concern. Then I kind of look at, well, is there that follow-up? And does the follow-up continue to have a lot of intensity and a lot of depth? Because if you have a lot of intensity and a lot of depth all in a row, then that signals something that would be more notable in a, from the perspective of me taking certain precautions beyond watching. Obviously, I think most anybody knows there are certain parts of the earth, certain parts of any particular nation, Mexico, US, whatever, where the earthquake risk is higher or lower. I'm not going to get into any of that because that's so easy to find that information. And until we hit, a really big one, I'm not so concerned about the topic of where are you relatively safe or relatively in danger relative in regard to intense earthquake activity or anything else related to that. Let's look again at the periods of time I just mentioned. Besides middle of May and middle of November, which was not very notable for a couple of years here, but here we have middle of November was high. The other two periods that are kind of halfway through there, this year we have not much in November, or middle 6 in May, or no, here's a 7.4 in middle to late May. But the other periods would be middle of February and middle of August. And for the year 2021, we saw a lot more across the middle of February, and then a couple weeks later here, deep. Middle of August, and that actually was preceded in late July by a big one. It's not so much that there was a follow-up that was even larger. Again, it partly depends on the depth of what we would expect as far as a follow-up. So middle of August, let's just start with February. So here I am pretty much dead center February. I'm just going to go with the center of February as we scroll down. So we have two that are elevated there. One elevated in yellow. Here we've got a few yellow plus a red and a black. There's a yellow. Later in February, we have the red. Middle of February, a red, and then again, a week later, another red. That's not the dead center of the month in this year. Again, this year, not something in the dead center. So February, here we have a red. Here we have a little earlier in the year. There you go. You can actually, this is interesting because you have red here, then a couple days later, big one, and now close to like the 8th or 9th of this year, it actually may be that there is a bit of a creeping cycle that I don't want to get too deep in that, but here middle of February, or early to mid February, we got a lot of stuff going on there. Since I brought this topic up, that it's not necessarily exactly an anniversary. Maybe there's a bit of a creeping pattern where it's like 368 days later. Here's this one, then 368 days later, something like that one, and then another 368 days later, that one. Here, does that continue? Well, not quite, but that would be another thing that statistics could check, and and as far as something being exact anniversary, that isn't the only kind of cycle that would be of interest. In fact, the researcher that I learned about all of these patterns from in general, he references a a repeating cycle that is not exactly 365 days in length. It's actually moving a few days each year, more or less. And when I say more or less, it is not the same each year, making it a little complicated because it's related to planets that have retrograde motion. So it wouldn't be necessarily exactly 368 days every consistently a 368-day repeat. We're going to look at middle of November. This is 2013. Here's the fourth strongest one that year. Not too much right there. Not too much right there. So here's some middle of November. We got a red line there. There's a yellow line, and then later in the month, a black line. A little earlier in the month, we have a prominent one on the 13th of November. And here we have the 16th of April. I'll just go back. Oh, we already looked at we looked at November. Sorry, I got sidetracked. So we're supposed to be looking at we looked at February. We didn't look at August yet. So here we go with middle of August. This was last year, 2021. We had definitely August 1st, September 1st, a peak of activity in center part of August. Quite prominent there that year. That was the strongest week of the year by far, was red, black, skip a day, red, skip a day, yellow, skip a day, yellow. That sequence of 7 or 8 days had a whole lot of strength in terms of intense earthquake activity. Scrolling down, here's a red one, middle of August. Here's nothing so much right in the middle of August that year. August 19th, an 8.1 that year. Probably the 16th of August, a 6.9. Maybe 18th of August, a 7.5. Some strong middle sixes here that year. Again, some upper sixes that year. A strong one, maybe the, I don't know, 12th of August or something. Is that 7.8 or 7.9? Here's another strong one, middle of August. Earlier part of August, or you could count this whole sequence right here as kind of middle August, but it's early to mid August there in 2010. So is that, how significant is that? Well, here we have an exception year where it's not much happening in the yellow or red, et cetera. But a lot of these years you have all but those 2 years, 2019 and whatever the other one was, definitely had a lot going on here, quite a lot, that middle of August period of time. So why do I do these things kind of annually in May? Well, it's because May is allegedly the time of most risk. If we had something like this go on in any May, whether it's the next few weeks or 10 years from now in May, if we had something like this go on with a lot of activity plus a lot of depth, then I would have some concern about potential, let's call it domino effects, potential cascade of other issues. In quickly reviewing, this data, I would say that August seems to be, especially looking at 2021 last year, August seems to be the period there where it's the most notable, that concentration of intensity across the middle of August, year after year, in the last, 12 years that I showed. So that's it for now. We'll see if we have something interesting happen in terms of really intense earthquakes in the next week to 2 weeks. And then if there is a intense and deep earthquake, we would anticipate a follow-up or a sequence of a swarm of more earthquakes. And again, I will be looking at, if such a thing happens, I will be noting how deep is that activity. I would say, as a final note, hopefully we will not see any strong activity or deep activity or a swarm of it. But it is statistically more probable that we might see something like that in the next week or two. So there you go. I'll plan to link the webpage I was just showing. It's volcanodiscovery.com, and then /earthquakes, all lowercase, and then /global seismic activity level. Those have hyphens in between them. I'll just plan to copy and paste that. So global -seismic -activity -level .html.